dynamite, I never meant to make you cry. Make your mind up.
Hello and welcome to This is Ibrox, the Rangers podcast. You're very welcome. As usual, it's your host, Scott Paterson, and joining me as per normal, we've got a regular podder, Tommy McIntyre, joining us. Hi Tommy, how are you doing?
I am very well, thank you. Evening to you both.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you should thank me. Thanks very much for that.
Very pleased to see that. For this week, we're really pleased. Very special guest joining us from beautiful Belfast. We have Graeme Hanna, the writer with VitalRangers. Graeme, hi, really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, pleasure, Scott. Good to be with yourself and Tommy tonight for the podcast.
Good man. So this week's podcast...
Nice to meet you, Graeme. Thanks for that.
This week's podcast is brought to you by Triple H Mortgages, the one-stop shop for all your mortgage and mortgage insurance needs. You can contact them at your next available opportunity on 01453 887 179. They're also available by email, hello@hhhoncapitalsmortgages.com. You can get them via their company website at all the W's, hhhmortgages.com, and they're also available under a similar bracket, HHH Mortgages, via Facebook. If you're on Facebook, of course, we recommend that you give them a shout. If you do so, mention ourselves, This is Ibrox, and they will look after you very well indeed. Tommy, 7 points left to go and it's a done deal. You would have taken that at the start of the season, would you not?
I expect us to be further ahead, to be honest with you at this point. I expect it to be in the bag. Listen, you're absolutely right. I think even the most positive glass half full Rangers fan would have, in the quieter moments, thought that we would be in a title race. I mean, I genuinely thought we'd win the title this season. I'm not just saying that retrospectively, but I was actually speaking to supporters of other clubs last night. No reason why, and I was saying I fully expected it to be a relatively tight title race, neck and neck going into the back end of March into April and stuff like that, before somebody would make a break for it. Rangers have been amazingly consistent, and it's that consistency piece that Steven Gerrard's been talking since iteration 1 to iteration 3, and have finally delivered on that. And it's been coupled with an implosion across the city at Celtic. The latter part of that, the implosion, shouldn't take away from just how dynamic, how ruthless and how consistent Rangers have been. Yeah. And how Steven Gerrard and his coaching team have made that. But yeah, back to your question, we cycle into what we're recording this on the 22nd of February, and we're 7 points away from a title that, on the bad side of the ledger, on 2012 seemed a long way away, and on 2021 is so deserved that it should probably already be here, because we are, without any shadow of a doubt, the best team in the country. The best team in the country, the most ruthless team in the country, the most talented team in the country, and the best team in the country to watch. So, yeah, 7 points. I fully expect us to get those 7, and for 55 to be duly delivered, courtesy of lots of people, but Mr. Steven Gerrard.
Graeme, I seen an interesting graphic today, and it goes back to the start of the year when Rangers won 1-0. At the Old Firm game, and that put us, if memory serves me right, 19 points clear, and they had 3 games still to play. They've now played those 3 games and they're 1 point better off. I think that illustrates just how off air, if you like, we've used how we've had our foot in the throat. It's been continuous since that game at Ibrox, hasn't it?
But don't you know, Celtic have still to play us twice.
Exactly.
No, listen, we can say it, without any hesitation, the league flag is coming home. Indeed. Yes, we've had to put up with, going back to last season, it was us, it was the blind hope, the faith of putting a few wins together, and this is it, we've turned the corner, and then it would be followed up by a bad result. Like the one that Celtic had last night at Ross County. But, that's on them. Our form has been excellent. We have set the pace. We have lasted the pace. We're still going. This is down to what we have done, the good work of our team. The ghosts of January past are gone. It was very important. Going back to last month, I always remember looking at that run of games and the vital game at Easter Road. Until Thursday night there, we were on a run of 4 games, just scoring 1 goal. The draw at Hamilton was included with that. So over the last 2 games, we've scored 8 goals. This, in going back to Walter Smith's 3 in a row, we were kind of getting into Kyle Lafferty time, as it was. I think at this stage, you're going to see a bit of freestyling. We saw it from Joe Aribo yesterday. The Europa League will raise the levels. Gerrard spoke about that in the last few days. The finish line is getting closer. Yep. Stephen Gerrard mentioned in the press conference yesterday that it's only natural, to think, but not to get carried away. It's coming. The players know it. We know it. There is still a 7-point swing to be negotiated, but we've almost done it. We're almost there.
If I can just add something to that, because I completely agree with everything that Graeme said there. It's probably worthwhile just taking a beat and reminding ourselves that I was actually talking in work today in my normal job, and I, to my shame, used the phrase ruthless prioritisation, right? You can all laugh at me later on off camera, right? In between saying blue sky thinking and deal with the crocodiles closest to the canoe, obviously, right? But so I was saying ruthless prioritisation, and Rangers and Steve and Gerrard, the management team, everybody. And I always bang on about this iteration process. You start with iteration 1, it's now iteration 3, and the squad's been able to get not only quality but quality mentality round about it, right? But Rangers have been able to prioritise on a number of fronts, right? Whilst I think absolutely objectively keeping the league title front and centre of their ruthless prioritisation. It's why they've been able to get, as Graeme quite rightly says, into a position in their mind that they weren't looking too far ahead. They got over the ghosts of last year and the January hoodoo, the January curse, the January people wanting it to be a curse, because that's the only way we'd have been caught this season. And the disappointments of things like the League Cup final and then St Mirren putting us out of the League Cup this season as well. Rangers then knuckled straight down. And I think the ability to react and win games, even when the reaction wasn't classy football, it was a grit reaction, is maybe the big difference between now this season and last season. We could play really good football in spells last season and we'd get undone by a bit of stupid defending, or we wouldn't concentrate across, or we'd switch off and we'd end up losing because we'd panic a little bit, particularly coming off the back of a bad result. This season, to Graeme's point again, we'll score 1 goal and then we'll let you try and break us down because we are rock solid. And that takes a mentality shift that is not easily obtained when you can't already point to a trophy in the cabinet. And this team has been able to manufacture that, and this management team have been able to manufacture that without playing siege mentality politics, without playing to the gallery, without silverware to say, remember, we did that, guys. But just by concentrating on the ruthless prioritisation in front of you, concentrating on their game and believing in their talent, that's a significant change and significant difference from anybody else in this country.
Tommy, amidst the sort of fun of the impending 55, of course, we travelled to Belgium last Thursday night for a round of 32 tie against Antwerp. Without question, one of the craziest games I think I've ever watched as a Rangers supporter. I'm 41 years a fan. Hard to believe, I know, but it's true. And I genuinely don't think I've seen such a bonkers game anywhere that we've been involved in, whether it's in this country or in our travels indeed. I want to focus on one man in particular. I felt the performance of Alfredo Morelos for the duration of the game was absolutely outstanding. I thought he was really, really good last Thursday, and his performance deserved everything and just couldn't get that goal in the end.
I agree, and it's interesting to be asked a question by Benjamin Button, obviously.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll try and answer it as quickly as I can before you disappear off my screen. And what else can I say about Belgium? Well, I don't want to waffle on, but it was a stellar performance. Right? That's my Belgian jokes out the way. You'll be happy to hear.
I need to go now, guys.
Yeah, Graham's had enough already. I don't blame you, Graham.
Enjoy this. I told you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a fair response, Graham, to be honest with you. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. The lazy comparison, easy comparison, I should say, probably would be, that's what it feels like to have been the Spartak Moscow fans, or Royal Antwerp had a touch of the Unarea Ursachenis about them, that everything they seemed to hit went in the back of the net.
Yeah, absolutely.
By and large. Do I think we're better than them? Yes, we are. That wasn't your question. The question was Alfredo Morelos, and you're absolutely right. It is absolutely, well, it's not hard to describe, right? But it's absolutely key to people understanding what Morelos offers off the ball.
Yeah.
And then comparing the ledger to what he offers on it. So I don't particularly think that Morelos is a natural finisher. I don't actually think that's a particularly controversial comment, right? And he's a goal scorer, but he's not a finisher, right? He isn't really that great sometimes when it comes to that, right? But his ability is unparalleled to make opposing defences think about him.
Yeah.
They will come out of their shape to engage with him. He riles them up in a way that isn't as overt as maybe the Scottish media and Scottish refereeing and fans would make you think. He's very, very smart, and he's very, very tricky that way. He wins a lot of free kicks very simply because he can bring defenders in, and then because they're thinking about him, he opens up gaps, and into those gaps pour our midfielders, much like happened in Belgium as well and stuff like that as well, and at the weekend. If you just looked at Alfredo Morelos and said goals to shots ratios or anything like that, you would think he was middling. I think what makes him different class is his ability to pull teams out of their own comfortable shape, and defenders not realising that they've drawn themselves into a one-on-one battle.
Yeah.
And invariably he wins that one-on-one battle with them. It might not be to score, it might be to set something up, it might be to allow somebody else to set something up. But I would imagine if you do the analysis and you watched most of our games, much like Belgium, against Royal Antwerp, I should say, you would see that he's at the heart of everything, because people just want to be next to him and they want to get that physical fight. Back to your original question, which was, how good was he against Royal Antwerp? He was fantastic. He did all those things that I've just spoken about there, which is why the management team love him so much and why we haven't let him leave the club so far, even though big money was on the table. Big money in italics, obviously, because we can get more for him. But yeah, he offers something completely different to like a Kemar Roof, Jermaine Defoe, Cedric Itten, and that's the whole point of having a squad where you can get different attributes and different combinations and different permutations. He deserved a goal, actually, and without jumping ahead in the podcast, his hard work was noticed by the gods of football, and he got rewarded against Dundee United with a wee easy one, so to speak.
Graeme, European football tends to bring out the best in Alfredo Morelos. I think a lot of the Rangers fans think that. I go back to the game in Holland against Feyenoord when he scored the two wonderful headers. I would say it was one of his best games in European football for Rangers. But I just thought that his general gameplay last Thursday, being in the right place at the right time, for example, just muscling the goalkeeper out of the way to get the ball to Rebo for the first goal on Thursday night. It was the wee things that he seemed to do really well last Thursday. I thought it was a really polished performance by him.
Yes, he was right on it. Tommy was speaking there about his work rate and pulling defenders out of position. But for me, the glue to the performance was the fact that his link play was spot on. Sometimes he can be a bit sloppy and a bit loose, in finding the first time pass or finding his teammate who's running off the ball. But he just seemed to be focused. There was no nonsense with Alfie last Thursday. He was roughing defenders up. He was turning them, everything that we love about him. But his touch was very good. Off the top of my head, I can't remember if there was an occasion, maybe just the one, where he maybe gave the ball away. we also have to remember that, he came very close to scoring himself for the first goal. The through ball was just a bit too long, but he toe poked it back to Aribo, and for our first penalty, if not for the shirt pull, he's in the sort of optimum position, and he's got a shape right to nod that in. But he was involved, massively in all four of our goals, including the two incidents directly leading to the penalties. Just with Morelos, it's consistency. Some weeks, we see him truly on the edge, and we occasionally, lets other things get in the way. But yeah, he was fantastic the other night. He was at the centre of our display.
Graeme, I'm going to stick with you because you refer to consistency, and again, this involves Morelos. Ryan Kent is a player who I think has been unfairly singled out for his consistency in his performance. The work rate that he does for the team, I don't think can ever be questioned, because I'd love to see his numbers at the end of the season for distance covered, etc. Barisic must love playing on the same side as him because he just never stops. He gives him constant cover. However, he obviously came off the bench on Thursday and scored a wonderful, wonderful goal. And you just wonder if it's those wee moments that these guys need just to, lift their chin up a little bit and maintain a bit of good feeling, if you like.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But what I will say is that Ryan Kent is his own worst enemy. And what I mean by that is that we see brilliance, like Thursday night. We have saw him plenty of times against Celtic, doing the same, or often, on a similar stage in Europe, like last week. But again, it's that consistency. However, let's get real for a moment. If Ryan Kent was producing goals and impacts like he did in Antwerp last week, we wouldn't have him. Yeah. So, I think we need to temper our expectations. Yes, we want to see, 15 goals a season from Ryan Kent, and double figures in terms of assists. And listen, if you take a step back and look at his contribution, as well as Yanis Hadji, who's also criticised as maybe not being on form or whatever it may be, they have had a significant impact on our goals and assists this season. So Ryan Kent doesn't hide. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it appears his feet are too quick for his head, but he's a very talented player. We tend to forget, this is probably just his, second and a half season as a regular. He was on loan before with Coventry, with Freiburg in Germany. Hasn't quite worked. He kind of, he's loved, so to speak, at Rangers. He trusts the management staff. He's on record as, having enjoyed working with Mick Beale in the Liverpool setup. So, he feels part of it. That was a big thing for him in making the move to Glasgow permanent. We're reaping the benefits of that. We all want more. We all want to see him get better and to score goals like last Thursday more often. If we can have a sort of happy medium, not too much of it, or else he'll be off. But at the same time, if he does get a move to England or wherever, that means he's doing well, which means the team's doing well. And a time will come, it's probably another conversation for another pod, but we need Ryan Kent and Glenn Kamara and others to, in effect, outgrow the Scottish Premiership. We need to see a return on our investment in players to get towards the self-sustainability that was discussed at the AGM. But for now, more of the same this Thursday, and hopefully more to come in the Europa League from him.
Tommy, another one of the big headlines from last Thursday, other than the result, the 2 penalties, Barisic went to fight with the keeper. The big thing for me was obviously losing James Tavernier, the captain, and Kemar Roof to injury first half. A penny for the thoughts of Nathan Paterson, perhaps, last Thursday night, don't you think?
Oh, probably more than a penny, actually. Although the glib response would be, well, they're worthless anyway, so why bother? Just before I get into that Paterson question, just picking on something that Graeme had mentioned there.
Yeah.
I love everybody in the squad, by and large, and want them all to do well, etc. I want everybody to get sold, because that's the business model. We bring them in and we make retail sales. We're in a profit-driven business, so everybody's up for sale. Rangers fans shouldn't be under any illusions about that. Depending on how you want to look at it, we are a selling club because that's the business model. We will never generate enough from inside Scotland to be self-sustaining. It has to be predicated on European advancement and then player trading. So everybody's up for sale and always are. It's about getting the right value at the right time, and just not to bookmark the Ryan Kent discussion. But whilst we also, as fans, I agree, have to temper our expectations, it shouldn't be lost about what he does do off the ball. It also shouldn't be lost about the fact that Rangers and Steven Gerrard management team set a certain level of expectation because they spent 7.5 million on, if you like. So that's an investment in his future. It's an investment in our club's future, and then it's investment in the bank balance, so to speak. So yeah, the more that he is worked with and protected and used at the right times and produces those things like he did against Royal Antwerp, so much the better. So somebody does eventually come calling. They're not going to come calling between now and 7 points away. So I'm quite a happy chappy with that. No chance of getting unsettled, shall we say. Going back to your point, and obviously tremendously sad to see Kemar Roof, and even more so, no harm to Kemar Roof, but even more so James Tavernier, who needs to be on the pitch and needs to be fit for when the title is won.
Correct.
Deserves it. That will heal all those scars that he carries with him, and it's carried with him with a legitimacy that I didn't think he had, if I was being brutally honest. It's nice to be able to eat that type of humble pie. It means a player's doing well, and it means a person's doing well, it means the club's doing well. Happy to gorge myself on that type of thing. And I think Steve Gerrard was saying it should only be a couple of weeks, so we should hopefully see them back. But the moment he went down and you saw the concerned looks, and you thought, oh, he's shaking it off, and then he went down again, it was more of a shock, actually, because James Tavernier doesn't get injured. James Tavernier does not miss games. He is I hate the phrase robot, but from a physique and a conditioning perspective, he must be an absolute dream to have in your team. Yeah. Because he is absolutely, always in shape and on the pitch, and his performances have been fantastic this season as well. The amount of ground he covers is just obscene. In all honesty, I don't think I'd maybe cover the same amount of ground in a couple of lifetimes. So I'm certainly not going to try. But yeah, Nathan Paterson sitting at home for the want of going to a late night party where, let's be brutally honest, nothing too exceptional, that you would miss out on for the rest of your life was going to happen. He has wasted. He's blown some goodwill he had with the club and with the fans, and then he's wasted an opportunity to have been in the team, to be playing in Europe, to be at the tail end of a championship-winning team, not just in and around the squad, actually on the pitch, to be able to show, in a wider sense as well, he is the coming deputy. More people worship the rising than the setting sun, so to speak. And that's not to say that James Tavernier is a setting sun, but you get the point I'm making. Yeah. He could have tried to cement stuff and then made that conversation in pre-season a debate. Do I go with Tav, or do I try the new young blood because he played really well towards the end of the season? That's all gone for him right now. That's gone. He now has to look at Leon Balogun, who's got an extra year's option, obviously, in there in the contract as well, and can happily play right back. And is doing it really well. Yeah. And you think, okay, Nathan Paterson has to knuckle down, has to apologise, has to have that one-to-one sit-down conversation that Steven Gerrard mentioned when they returned from self-isolation. and think long and hard about what he's done. And is he a wee boy who wants to be able to talk about that he was on Rangers books and was a good thing when he's sitting in the boot room at Alloa or Kilmarnock or Falkirk? No disrespect to two of those clubs. Or does he want to be the guy who replaces the captain that won 55 and cement his place as a Rangers player and then go on to the Premiership, whatever? You know, two forks, diverged in a yellow wood and all that type of stuff. He has to make that decision. And you don't get a better example of how your decision making can crystallise in a moment than that. I went to a party. I thought I was smarter than the club. I thought I was smarter than the guidelines in a pandemic. And the next thing you know, Mr. Consistent breaks down and I could have been on the pitch instead of watching it on the telly. I've got pretty limited sympathy for him and Calvin Bassey and the rest of them, for example.
In my own opinion, particularly with probably four of them, I think, to be honest with you, two of them in particular, and you've alluded to this yourself, Graeme, you've done as well, they're assets, aren't they? And football's is fickle in the sense that they will one day potentially make us money. I think you will see at least two of them again in a Rangers jersey next season. Now, certainly I don't suspect you'll see any of them before the end of this season, but I suspect we will see one or two of them next season still in and around the first team squad. Graeme, I'm going to come to you next. We obviously took on Dundee United at the weekend. You have been lucky enough to make it into Ibrox the weekend. Rangers continuing the support of fan media, which is excellent, first class. You were lucky enough to be there for the Dundee United game on Saturday. Before we dig into the tie itself, let us know a little bit about the atmosphere and that general experience about going around Ibrox with only the written press and guys like yourself there.
Yeah, sure. So, just to reiterate the gratitude, for the club getting on board with fan media and, enabling, people like myself and you guys as well. This is Ibrox, just working in hand with fan media. But, yeah, it was surreal. I posted on my Twitter account on my own page earlier at about 1:30 yesterday. I took a walk down Copeland Road. Usually the subway would be rumbling, people piling out of the station, guys standing, selling tickets, programs. The Loudon across the road would be bunged. There would be plenty of noise. The chippy, the sportsman, would be doing a roaring trade, and others who do a bet, would be keeping their tills full. Nothing, it was surreal. It was, not quite a ghost town. There was a bit of traffic going past, but I just wanted to sort of capture that moment and take it in. 90 minutes before Rangers kick off. Hopefully, once things get back to normal, we'll never see that again. So yes, it was very fortunate to be in attendance, and yeah, I don't take that for granted. It was a privilege. So basically, just before 2 p.m, around the front of the stadium, the accredited media personnel get a quick temperature check, and then you collect your match pass from the security staff. Basically, then you go in, go up the steps, up through the main stand, and you take your allocated seat. So from there, just get the kit set up. The staff come round with the team sheets. So basically, you start to get a feel for things. Shortly after the teams were just finishing their warm-ups. Obviously we've all, watched the games so far this season on TV. So looking across from the main stand and on an excellent vantage point just above the director's box, just behind it. Looking out at the banners, looking over at my seat in the Broomloom front, over to BF1, where the Union Bars would normally be doing their thing. And then there was the noise. Obviously there's no fans, so you're able to hear players. Alan McGregor, of course, was very vocal. Some others, shouts from the bench. It was quite interesting to hear shouts from the director's box, and cheering goals as well, things like that. So just a different experience. Very interesting, taking in different sights and sounds. Yesterday, I know it was picked up on by Clive Tilsley on commentary, but the group of pigeons that basically kind of went from corner to corner, that sort of did a tour of the pitch. Don't know if it was related to the famous pigeon at Hampden for the 1-0 League Cup final against St Mirren a few years ago. But yeah, fantastic experience, but productive and beneficial. I wasn't just there to watch the game. So yeah, very good. But it's about taking it in, but being productive, learning and using it to the benefit of fan media outlets and the Rangers support.
Tommy, fan media is something that I think is it's open to a bit of opinion, I think, because one of the great things we do each have as supporters is we are entitled to have our own opinion, and some things we'll say that we agree with, and some things we just don't. My own personal opinion is that Rangers are really on the front foot with encouraging fan media just now, aren't they?
They are, and we obviously have a relationship with the club here. This is Ibrox. I think you always get yourself into one particular question, which is how can you draw the line between being a fan and being an objective fan media representative, and you have to take off the blue tinted specs, etc. That's not to say you have to be overly negative or anything, but you need to be very careful. You don't just tell a good story for the sake of telling a good story. But I agree with you. Rangers, in terms of engaging with fan media, being a digitally native brand, the way that they've approached the commercial aspects as well, they've reinvented themselves in the modern era, which has been transformational, and they've done that in a relatively short space of time to turn around such an institution. That digitally native part is probably key to that as well, actually, in terms of unlocking the commercial aspects. But I don't think there's any other club in Scotland that does it as well as Rangers. But then again, I don't think there's any other club in Scotland that has such a spread of, I would say, really, really top tier fan media sites who are all producing really good content and all producing it, regularly, and are really open. It's a really good collective. Whilst everybody's doing their own, individual things, we share analysis, we share information, we share friendships and stuff like that. It's not a us first scenario, and I think the club slowly but surely are coming around to that type of working arrangement as well. Just to go back to Graeme's point as well, because I was thinking about it, those pigeons, that's what happens when you don't have a GoFundMe page and you want the red arrows, right? You end up with Pigeon Squadron, right? So that was as much as I was willing to put forward, some birdseed. And I'm sure Graeme will back me up when he says, obviously, Alan McGregor was shouting nothing but encouragement to the referee for a stellar performance as well. But yeah, to go again back to your question, wandering away from it as I usually like to do, Rangers are very good at that. Long may it continue, and they've obviously made a strategic decision to be good at it, which is a good thing. And we see the engagement of former players, current players, this type of thing as well. And to see people like Graeme getting into the games as well, that helps fans remember what it's like to be at games too. I have to admit, just to bookend that, or just to close it out, just before the game, an hour or so before the game, on Rangers' Twitter feed, they were doing this photographs from different parts of the stadium, and they were asking people, and it just hit me, because I was looking at it, I was thinking, I've not been in my seat, for the longest time.
Ages.
And I really miss it. I really miss it, and I really miss meeting the guys for a beer and chatting to meet the guys in and women in my section and stuff like that, the people in my section, and having a laugh. I don't think I've seen any of them since This Is Ibrox started.
So now you're a celebrity.
Oh, aye, with a small C and no ebriety to the end. But it's just been that long. I only use it as a kind of time marker for myself, right? But none of us have been there. So Graeme's got a great opportunity to do it, but he also has to do it professionally because he's a professional and he goes in there to report. But he's still accessing the club, and I think Rangers giving fan media, therefore fans, the opportunity to do that as opposed to just pulling another mainstream media representative off the shelf is so much to their credit.
Just to add to that, Tommy, it's important to note the mainstream media, the papers, the traditional press, and the major broadcasters, they've lost their monopoly that they once held. The rise of social media and things associated to it, it has democratized media output. So basically, outlets like This Is Ibrox, like Heart and Hand, they're an evolution in a way of the fanzines of yesteryear. Obviously, follow is still going strong, predominantly online now, but it's just a continuation. Previously speaking with David Edgar, he made a good point that the club are looking and seeing where the fans are getting their media from. So if sites like Heart and Hand, have a significant number of subscribers, if outlets like This Is Ibrox are getting good hits on YouTube for this pod and things like that, why wouldn't the club be engaging? So in between, we have this situation at Rangers, the ongoing saga, with the BBC, and not to get into that, so there is that. There's the likes of Graham Spears, who decided to add his tuppence over the weekend, comparing Ibrox to a North Korea style dictatorship and nonsense like this. A bit of self-awareness, would be decent for the likes of him. Looking at the bigger picture, we can see why fan media has taken off. You look down south, the likes of the Anfield Wrap and Redmen TV at Liverpool, excellent, full professional productions, running pretty much around the clock at all games, engaging with a large section of their fan base. I don't think that fan media should apologise for being biased. We are fans and we are upfront about that, but we still can be objective. We should, call it as we see it. Okay, we might lose a few staunch points here and there for, maybe giving the other team some kind of credit. To an extent, we're still fans, but it's about respect. Certainly in my position yesterday, I was respectful of the fact that I was there as fan media. Certain mainstream outlets and journalists may look down at people like us and the position we are being given, but also plenty of other mainstream and seasoned journalists are also football fans. So we're not that different. So it's a good conversation. But fan media is here. It's here to stay, and it's only going to get better and stronger.
That's all. That's all. That's all relatively fascinating, I should say. And I agree with some of you on that, and I probably disagree with you on several parts of it as well, to be honest with you, Graeme. But just to pick up on one or two key points there, the objectivity and the bias part, and being biased and being of being objective, that's a hard circle to square off, and that's a different conversation for a different time. You also have to face into, whilst you're probably reasonably correct when you say democratisation, and I get some of that, you have to remember that some of that democratisation comes with a cost behind it, and I mean a tangible cost to people accessing sites.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also find behind that there's larger investment from some of the mainstream media that are backing some of these fan media sites. So it's maybe not as objective and independent as you may be, broadly speaking there. And that's not directed at you particularly, it's just in the broader theme. And then you have to make sure that you understand with that democratisation, and to use your example, and being a bit more of a critical thinker here, I suppose, and challenging that, you say, well, okay, the club is looking at where media is being drawn by the fans from. Okay, so then you need to be really, really careful you don't just become an echo chamber to tell good news stories. And so that takes us back to that objective part and that objectivity part, which is really key and central to me. And then on top of that, you need to overlay the fact that you don't become just an outlet for the club's good news stories and an extension of their PR department.
Absolutely.
And those are all very, very real crystallised risks across that fan media democratised landscape that you're talking about. Some of it because it's a regulatory grey area as well. Just to encapsulate that, there is still a space for mainstream media. There should still be space for a mainstream independent media not affiliated with the club or the fan base. To lose that would be to lose more of ourselves than we think. But are we right to challenge that? And are we right to challenge fan media? Yes. Do we have to be very, very careful that the stories that are promoted within fan media aren't based on the fact that we have a close relationship with the club, or we've done the right thing by them, or we're willing to walk past bad moments or not have a power of facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves as a support or our club or whatever's performing? Absolutely not. Everything's going really well for Rangers right now, so it's easy to be, to an extent, in fan media. The proof of that pudding will come when there's a challenging aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so whilst I agree with a lot of what you're saying there, I think it's probably quite clear that I disagree with some of it as well. And some of those risks need to be in our minds when we are taking part in fan media, listening to fan media, glorifying fan media. Yeah,
independence is key.
Graeme, I'm going to come back to you on the game itself on Saturday. I actually felt Dundee United came and had a bit of a go at us. So the first 25 minutes, I actually thought they would whisper it, but I felt they were the better team, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they started the game better than us. Mickey Mellon, from everything you believe that Clive Tilsley was saying, was right into his team from the off, encouraging them to sort of press into us as best as they could. However, we kind of got into our groove, I think was the term that Steven Gerrard used post-match, and it was a really inspired Joe Aribo performance as the afternoon went on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Scott. Dundee United were quicker out of the blocks. As early as the first few minutes, Mickey Mellon was out on the touchline, barking at his players. They appeared to focus on congesting the middle of the pitch. They were quite strong centrally. They had those chances that you mentioned there. Alan McGregor stepped up and provided that base and the springboard, for us to get into the game. It was almost, Rangers, almost like a boxer kind of, sort of just weighing up the opponent, getting ready, and then we let fly with the punches. So Dundee United, were a bit hard done by, and to continue the boxing analogy, it was like a double sucker punch for those 2 goals that we got, and we didn't look back. And that's the way it should be. Some games, we won't be firing on all cylinders, but once you get your nose ahead, then you keep going forward. That's what we did. Once we got the first goal, the players seemed to relax. They stepped it up immediately. Once we were 2-0 up, it was fairly comfortable. It could have been more. The manager spoke about he was a bit unhappy at how we saw the game. And yeah, Alan McGregor was not happy at losing that clean sheet. I mentioned at the start of the programme, maybe in our chat before, my mind's going already, about players freestyling and lifting their game. But yeah, didn't we see that from Joe Aribo? Early on, you could tell, his hips were swiveling. He looked in the mood. His head was up. Good movement, good use of the ball. He sort of saved the best for the thunderbolt in the second half. Funny enough, the guy beside me yesterday, he was from the Courier, covering the game from a Dundee United perspective, and he'd sort of asked me about Aribo and what I thought. I can't remember exactly, but I had mentioned his sort of football upbringing and in the cage football of South London, and Calvin Bassey, who will have other players in the Premiership like Zaha, Crystal Palace, and others. It's real street football, and you can see that in the way he plays. He's great to watch. He's an entertainer. Obviously the mind drifts back to Braga last season and the Maisie run. I just love the way so many times it's almost like he's ran the ball too far or he's lost it, and the big leg comes out and just twists the ball away. Yeah, he was fantastic. But we had Morelos' work rate again yesterday. We had Hadji's movement. A few times I was just watching him, not watching the ball, which we don't get to do on TV. And he's very, very good. He was surprisingly vocal as well. Not to the extent of Alan McGregor, obviously. But yeah, he was good. He was making himself heard. And the industry of Ryan Kent, it wasn't Kent's best game yesterday. But he was buzzing around. So I just think the players sense it. They can smell victory. We're very close to getting their hands on the trophy, and it just pleased me that we put the game to bed yesterday. There may have been a wee bit of nerves from outside. At losing Tav. Balogun was more than efficient. He brought his own style to right back, and he got up the pitch well. As I said yesterday, he's played in the Premier League, he's played in the Bundesliga, he's a Nigerian international. He's no mug. Far from it. He's a good player, certainly at Scottish Premiership level. So I've no worries about that. I'm not sure if he'll be able to play every game. But that's something, for going forward. And of course, we had the niggle, the calf strain for Ryan Jack. So yes, very, very good. Minor blip to concede the goal, but it tells you where we're at. When we're splitting hairs, over a consolation goal for the opposition, and when we've only scored 4 goals. So. Brilliant. Enjoy it. Drink it in.
Tommy, I know you're a huge fan of Joe Aribo, and the goal was just perfectly placed, wasn't it? The Dundee United goalkeeper is actually quite a good goalkeeper, as we saw the penalty save from Barisic. Any penalty that doesn't go in is a bad penalty in my eyes, but I thought it was a decent save. However, there was no danger he was getting anywhere near the Aribo effort in the second half, was he?
No, you're right. Siegrist is a decent goalkeeper, actually. Personally, I would say Barisic telegraphed that penalty. It was pretty much exactly the same place that he hit the 2 against Antwerp as well. Curse of the lefties, they tend to go the same way. But you're absolutely right. The power generation and the direction for the goal in the second half was phenomenal, and I think it actually hits the inside of the post. and goes in. The keeper's not getting there for love of the money and with a cherry picker. You don't want to have a glib way of putting it. But yeah, it gives you all that, and I'm taken back, I suppose, for if you look back the way slightly, I'm always taken back to, I think it was just after the Braga game actually, so forgetting the goal itself, but Steven Gerrard was saying, I need people to come with me on Joe Aribo.
Yeah.
He's going to be frustrating. I personally think anybody that plays near or at the top of the park is by definition going to be frustrating because they're the ones that are trying to make things happen. So things will come off, they won't come off, they'll be all confidence players, they won't, right? Although I tend to believe that everybody's a confidence player to some extent, but it's neither here nor there in terms of your question. But he was saying that because Joe Aribo has all the talent. He's more mobile than I first thought he would be. He's up for the physical fight. He's got a really good physique. He's certainly got the technical ability, and Graeme has referenced some of that cage football stuff that has helped inform the way that he approaches the game. And he's definitely got an eye for a goal. I remember his finish against Hibs as well, which was an absolute screamer. If we can keep Joe Aribo for another season and we get more out of him again, much to Lee Bowyer's chagrin, I would imagine, then he's another one that goes into that basket of he'll come up here, he'll develop, we'll be a better team because of him as well. He'll win trophies, we'll make a big fat profit. If you're cycling through those things consistently with players, your club's in a pretty good place. We've touched on that with the Glenn Kamara, we've touched on it with the Anas Hadji, we've touched on it with anybody, Ryan Kent or Alfredo Morelos, who I think some people still forget only cost the base part of £1 million, so to speak. That's the business model. I personally just like the way that Joe Aribo approaches the game. I love that freedom of movement, and it does look as if he is just playing in that cage still with his mates. It's just very loose, it's very rangy. It's a style that I enjoy watching to a large extent. Weirdly, and it not like for like, but weirdly it reminds me a bit of a Davy Cooper, because Davy Cooper didn't play the game in a rigid way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the same types of players or anything like that, but you watch a Davy Cooper or Jim Baxter, you hark back to any of that type of thing, even a Gaza to an extent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely, Graeme, spot on there. I just like the way that players approach that, and actually they're being drilled out of the game. They're being coached out of the game, that type of thing. So to see it in our doorstep, in our jersey, I can't get enough of it. I love watching them. It's the same. It's the opposite side of the ledger to let's say a Ryan Jack, who's a bit more rigid, but he needs to be. But yeah, I am a big fan of Joe Aribo. I'm having to stop myself because I've sensed that I could talk about Joe Aribo for a lot longer. But yeah, long may Joe smash them in from the edge of the box. I'll happily watch that all day long.
Tommy, I'm going to stay with you because we spoke about this prior to starting, and I do feel every season that there comes a point in the season where you hear a pundit say about the team that are maybe racing to the title that their goalkeeper has saved them X amount of points this season. Alan McGregor makes a really wonderful save from Lawrence Shankland at nothing each. And it's been an epitome of what the last few weeks have been like. He's pulled out really important saves at varying times in games over the past 3 to 4 weeks. Do you think Alan McGregor is better at the club this time around than he was first?
Well, watch me take my time to get to that answer.
Wouldn't you like me?
Yeah, it wouldn't be like me. No, but I think, for example, Graeme had referenced the fact that we didn't start particularly well in the Dundee United game, and you get Alan McGregor making saves. So, I agree with that. And probably add to it, you get those, it's not so much a cliche because it's a formative factual thing, but you get the confidence of the back four because they know if they're having a bad game or they've started badly, Alan McGregor's going to by and large bail them out. And then you extrapolate that through all the moments of the season, all those crystallised moments whereby somebody broke through or a ball broke loose, and instead of it being a goal that we had to get back or a game that we had to get back into, we were still on parity or still one ahead or whatever. You can't overstate that type of stuff. And a lot of people will say that's a goalkeeper's job. True, but there's goalkeepers who do their job and there's goalkeepers who engender confidence to the rest of the team. And they're two separate things. A good example would be David De Gea, who used to be a keeper who gave confidence to the entire team, and now I would reckon is just a keeper that does his job.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
You know, and Al McGregor is definitely in the gives confidence to the entire team, and if they're not sure of it, they'll certainly hear it because as Graham's referenced as well. I think he likes to tell people that he's there. all of which has let me unwind the ball of string in my mind to say, pound for pound, this version of Alan McGregor is better than the first one. And I say that for two main reasons. The wealth of experience in the game that he has brought in terms of being on the pitch, and the way that he's able to maintain his positioning and close down spaces and read that game is so much the better, actually. And that just comes from experience. And the second one is, this time round, he is one of the required senior leaders who set the standards on a daily basis within that squad that has helped get us to a place whereby we're talking about single-digit points to bring us 55, or the 55th league title, I should say. That's why he's better than the first iteration of Alan McGregor in a Rangers jersey.
Graeme, same question. I agree with Tommy for what it's worth. Graeme, same question to you.
It seems to mean more to him this time. Not that, I'm not saying that he didn't care first time around.
Yeah.
Far from it. He gave us plenty of excellent memories. And I'm fortunate and grateful, that I witnessed many of them live, at the stadiums. One thing that's very prevalent, time is very much against him right now. I'm sure at the start of the season, he's thinking, if we don't win the league this season, will I have another chance? As we are going to win the league, and I feel fine saying that now. It was a bit of bravado, until recently. But if we do win the league, for me...
Did you just drop an F there? Did you just drop an F there?
I'm fooling myself here. When we win the league, it provides another incentive for me in terms of carrying on. The manager spoke recently that, in due course, in a few weeks, he will sit down with McGregor and have that conversation. As a league winner, having another shot at the Champions League, quite possibly his last, that is a different conversation than, come on, Alan, I need you to try at the fourth time of asking to win the league. Would it even be Steven Gerrard asking the question? Thankfully that's hypothetical. But one thing, while Tommy was, giving his opinion, I'm kind of thinking here, and I think there's a strong argument that he has been more consistent and more pivotal across individual games. Great goalkeepers, save their team. Okay, it's what they're there to do, but it separates the great from the good. David De Gea was mentioned there. His stock is much, much lower than what it was previously. But this season, McGregor's been the man for the big moments, and another big moments, and it will go down on the record of this season as the final, kick up the arse that was needed, which was Hamilton a couple of weeks ago. We saw that raw, visceral passion and the hunger. No doubt, he was straight into that dressing room, telling the players exactly what he thought. He had a wee bit of misfortune. The Callaghan's equaliser, went in off him. But, he quickly came out in front of the cameras. It was reassuring for the fans. It was kind of, what we wanted to hear. But most importantly, the players went out, after that, and we got the win against Kilmarnock last week, and put it to bed. Followed that up with an impressive showing in Europe, showing character, determination, and bottle, and a bit of risk but the reward was worth the risk to go for the win on Thursday night, which puts us into a commanding position for the return leg, which we will get on to, I know. But yeah, for me, he has been, head and shoulders a leader, an influence, and yeah, just a shining light this season for us.
You'll unquestion. Sorry, Tom, on you go. It was a very quick comment, actually, not particularly related to that. It was semi-related to that. How much better Rangers' choice of people going in front of the camera, how much more logical, how much more reasonable it's been in terms of where we've seen previous iterations of managers whereby players are just getting thrown out left, right and centre, and you're thinking, why is that player out in front of the camera? There's been a consistent uptick in that type of thing. It's driven obviously by the fact that their manager's very comfortable in front of the camera because he's lived in front of it. But to see things like a potentially bad result, people still getting a little bit nervous because that was that last minute winner, equaliser against Hamilton. It felt like a defeat and stuff like that. All of a sudden you've got a man who knows a Rangers man, whatever that phrase means in terms of professionals, but who's been there, done it, and who lives and breathes the club, coming straight out and making it very clear that there was a displeasure at that performance, and that would be communicated to everybody, and being communicated back to the fans it fills that void immediately of, were they up for it? Did they realise what it means, which permeates a lot of people's thoughts sometimes? It really did put a capstone on that. They know, he knows, and he's not going to let them forget. It was a really important moment. Rangers are quite good at that at the moment in terms of putting the right people out at the right times in front of the camera. Small point, but worthwhile saying. Tommy, I'll stick with you. You were lucky enough to get a 30-minute chat or so with Greg Marshall, the supporters liaison officer, last week with regards to the return leg at Ibrox on Thursday, and Rangers have tonight, Monday, announced that there's going to be a virtual watch-along, which sounds really, really interesting. I wonder if you could take a couple of minutes to just explain the initiative, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Greg's a fantastic guy. I think a lot of people listening will know him as well. To go from Dave King to Greg, though, I mean, I don't think he'll have a go at me. That was a slightly downward trajectory. But so Rangers were looking at how they could enhance opportunities to engage with the fans. So it's all about, obviously, sitting on fan media. The irony is not lost on me. We've discussed that earlier. And so one of the things that they have promoted, I think they promoted it today officially as well, is a watch-along party for the return leg of the Antwerp game. Now, being very clear, purchasing a ticket to this watch-along does not get you access to BT Sport to watch the game. Yep. You have to have BT Sport or use legitimate streams or whatever the This Is Ibrox lawyers are telling me to say when it comes to talking about that type of thing. Don't click on over 50s stuff in the corner or whatever it is, right? But swiftly moving on from that. So yeah, the prices are set at 2 tiers. So it's $3.99 for tier 1 or $5.99, and they come with different things like access to the or a digital copy of the programme, my Jers points, all that type of thing. And I would recommend anybody goes onto the Rangers website and has a look at the FAQ pages, etc., etc. But essentially, $3.99 or $5.99 on both tiers, you get a ticket for the watch-along party. Now, that will be hosted by Clive Tilsley and Jermaine Defoe. Excellent. And using an app that you'll have to download if you're interested in this, called Hot Mic, and that's HOT_MIC, Hot Mic. It will sync up, and I'll speak about this in a second because it's a small technical point. It will sync up with the BT Sport coverage, so you don't get, Clive talking about us scoring and you've still not seen it on your BT yet. So it syncs up. So you need 2 smart devices, one to watch the game, that could be a TV or whatever, and then one to watch the watch along, which could be a phone or a tablet or a laptop, anything like that. Download the Hot Mic app, right? And you can interact directly with Jermaine and Clive and their guests, etc., in terms of comments, stories. There'll be prizes, there'll be giveaways, these types of things as well. So it's all about making sure that the Rangers fans can interact with players and Clive, etc., who'll be speaking to fans and stuff like that as well. There is, obviously, it's worthwhile saying, more money goes into the club because that's a revenue stream as well, and that shouldn't be walked past. And ultimately, it's a watch-along party for all the fans given by the club. So I would suggest go and have a look at it. Go and look at the FAQ pages on the website, find out what it's about, and get involved.
Graeme, there's a place up for grabs in the last 16 after the game on Thursday night. I think we've seen enough in Belgium to go into the game with a reasonable degree of confidence. I would, however, sort of cast our mind back not too far to Standard Liège coming to Ibrox and proving to be a bit of a challenge initially. I don't think it'll be a pushover by any matter of means on Thursday. However, I think we can go into the game reasonably confident that we can progress into the next round.
Yes, absolutely. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall when Gerard and the coaching staff did the analysis of the game last Thursday. When you consider the goals that Antwerp scored, the first one, the header, Borna Barisic won't have enjoyed watching that back. He was a mile away from the guy, and you could say the header was well placed, but it seems, how many times out of 10 does he put that away? The penalty, that they got, yes, there was contact, but come on, the fact that VAR wasn't able to rescind that, it makes a bit of a mockery of it. It's there to get big calls right.
Right.
Is that really where we're going? Should a tap, and it was a tap on his heel. It turned out to a sideways dive. The third goal, we were a bit loose. I think the boy, he made a late run into the position, and fair play to him. It was a cracking finish off the post. So we were a bit loose defensively. I don't think we were quite at it in terms of our control in the middle of the pitch. Stephen Davis, who has been excellent for us, wasn't quite on his game. I thought, he still was decent, but I think that Thursday, if we go into the game, it's about balance. If we have our organisation and our shape right, which I'm sure it will be, that creates the foundation then for us to go forward. At some point, they need to attack. There wasn't really as much of a structure to Antwerp and a sort of style of play compared to Standard. I thought it was a great entertaining game, but I'm glad we won last week. We are in we have the advantage of not needing to win. A draw does us, but on our home soil, I'm more than fancy us to get a result. We can't overlook the fact that the referee's performance had last week. He had a big part in that game and certain calls. He seemed very quick to show cards to our players. Personally, I thought our second penalty shouldn't have been a penalty, but one we got given against us shouldn't have been. So maybe that cancels, one cancels the other out. I think we can play better overall in terms of our defence will be better this Thursday. Antwerp have the box office Lam Kelze back on Thursday, and for I was going to say listeners, not listeners, viewers who may not be aware of him, he was the guy who, in a dispute with the club, turned up wearing an Anderlecht shirt to training to try and force a move to Panathinaikos. I'm told by a Dutch journalist who I was speaking to before the game last week, he also keeps an eye on Belgian football, that the guy is just box office. If it's not getting sent off, it's wearing shirts, it's noising up his teammates, and the ultras actually came to the training ground to try and physically remove him. Apparently, they made a pact with the club that in order for them to leave and not cause hassle, that the club were selling him in the transfer window. But Paterson, who was only appointed last month, he decided, no, I need him because he's actually quite a good player. So he's one to watch out for on Thursday. However, I'm more than confident. It's not a case of, oh, we can just draw. We're in control. We will be confident. We should fancy ourselves to win. Not to be disrespectful or to underestimate them, because at times they caused us problems. But we should have no fear. If we play our own game, if we apply ourselves, and if we pick them off at the right times, there's goals there for us.
Tommy, you'll fancy us on Thursday, yeah?
I do, yeah. Just before that, in terms of when he turned up to the training ground in an Anderlecht shirt, unconfirmed reports from Belgian journalists that he had a roof on the back. But it's maybe neither here at this point in time. But yeah, he's got a bit of the Balotellis about him. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the game was characterised probably primarily about defensive lapses and lack of control and lack of discipline, rather than enlightening moments of football. Ryan Kent's goal aside and stuff like that, and Joe Rebo's nice soft finish. But by and large, it was two teams that kind of forgot some of the basics, and that's what led to a lot of it. I agree as well, some strange decisions from the referee, but they're not Standard Liège. Standard Liège are better, in my opinion. I know people point to the table and stuff like that, but I think they drew with Standard Liège before they played us, and then they drew with St. True. Yeah. No, yesterday as well. So yeah, I sense that they won't get as many opportunities at Ibrox. We'll be set up in a slightly different way. Not everything will go for them. I think we'll still carry a threat and dominate the possession. We'll be a bit smarter and a bit more disciplined than we were the other night out in Belgium. And I fully expect us to go through playing at Ibrox as well. It's all in our favour. We just need to make sure that we maintain that discipline and don't give away anything stupid in at the start of the game or anything like that. Be interesting to see VAR make an appearance again. Always an enlightening and funny period. Exactly. But yeah, you're absolutely right to make that short answer. I fully expect us to beat Royal Antwerp. I don't think they're as good as that scoreline would make you think, just reading it black and white. They kind of got a lot of luck on the night. We got some as well. I don't disregard that. Pound for pound, are we a better side? Yeah, we are.
Graeme, before I let you disappear until next time, why don't you take the opportunity to let us know a little bit about VitalRangers?
Yes, certainly. So VitalRangers is a network site on the Vital Football platform provided by Snack Media. So there's myself and there's Gavin Kelly, who's a good blue nose and a very good writer. So every day we have news, views, opinion. I like to lead on fan culture stuff and tell different stories relating to to us, the Rangers fans, and similar written content that you'll see online. So we're on Twitter. We're at VitalRangers. The website is rangers.vitalfootball.co.uk. So check us out, please. You'll also find a lot of my work on my own Twitter page, which is at Graeme818. Not spelt like Graham Roberts, just there behind me. But I was named after Mr. Souness. Born
that's the right answer. That's definitely the right answer.
So, staunch and all that. So yes, that's where you'll find my work most of all. And yes, please check it out and let me know what you think.
Graeme, I thoroughly appreciate you joining us in the pod this week. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
So before I let everyone sort of head out until next time, we should say, and Tommy, we alluded to this on last week's pod, Rangers have been good enough to give us access to cover the women's game moving forward. And from the first week in March, This Is Ibrox will be rolling out a women's podcast. It'll be myself, Tommy, Willie Boyd will be in there as well, and we're going to be joined by Graham Falk, who's a friend of the show. We're also bringing on board a lady called Courtney McKenzie. She's going to join us as well, and we've got a very special guest for the first pod that will go out weekending the 5th of March. So really looking forward to that, and again, kudos to the club for giving us access and helping us out where we need it. Thomas, we'll do it all again next week. I appreciate you joining us. Thursday night is the next big game that we have to look forward to.
Yes, bring it on, and my thanks to yourself, as always, Scott, and for Graeme for joining us. Really, really good and interesting chat. Enjoyed that this evening, gents.
So good luck to Rangers on Thursday. We will do it all again next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Like an animal, something so physical. Burn it down. Let your fear out. Let your fear out.
You're listening to This Is Ibrox, your Rangers podcast, brought to you by Triple H Mortgages, the one-stop shop for all your mortgage and mortgage insurance needs. Contact them on 01453 88 7179 or via email hello@hhhmortgages.com.